Surah Mulk. Auzubillahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Tabarakallazi biyadihil mulk wa huwa ala kulli syai'in qadir. Allazi khalaqal mauta wal hayata liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala wa huwal azizul ghafur. Allazi khalaqa sab'a samawatin tibaqa ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فتور ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين وأعتدنا لهم عذاب السعير وللذين كفروا بربهم عذاب جهنم وبئس المصير إذا ألقوا فيها سمعوا لها شهيقا وهي تفور تكاد تميز من الغيظ كلما ألقي فيها فوج سألهم خزنتها ألم يأتكم نذير قالوا بلى قد جاءنا نذير فكذبنا وقلنا ما نزل الله من شيء إن أنتم إلا في ضلال كبير وقالوا لو كنا نسمع أو نعقل ما كنا في أصحاب السعير فاعترفوا بذنبهم فسحقا لأصحاب السعير إن الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير وأسروا قولكم أو اجهروا به إنه عليم بذات الصدور ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها وكلوا من رزقه وإليه النشور آمنتم من في السماء أن يخسف بكم الأرض فإذا هي تمور أم أمنتم من في السماء أن يرسل عليكم حاسبا فستعلمون كيف نذير ولقد كذب الذين من قبلهم فكيف كان نكير أولم يروا إلى الطير فوقهم صافات ويقبضن ما يمسكوهن إلا الرحمن إنه بكل شيء بصير أمن هذا الذي هو جند لكم ينصركم من دون الرحمن إن الكافرون إلا في غرور أمن هذا الذي يرزقكم إن أمسك رزقه بل لجوا في عتو ونفور أفمن يمشي مكبا على وجهه أهدى أمن يمشي سويا على صراط مستقيم قل هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
حديث kisah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري أنه قال عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام وقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به فصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمّا فقلت عليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال يا أمّا إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدة يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء وقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمّا فقلت عليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمّاه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدة السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء وقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأن رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومأ بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وعامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وصل على محمد وآل محمد. وقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذي هم تحت الكساء. وقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ وقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ وقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم. وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ وقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء. وقال لي أبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت يطهر ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرنا ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفي جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. وقال علي إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على الفاتحة.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dr. Syed, Shabbir, Kirmani, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of Masjid Hayy, we would like to extend the Khushali Mubarak to you all on Imam Musa Kadhim Day today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all your du'as and continue to shower His blessings on you on this and the coming auspicious nights. Ameen. Surah Al-Fatiha is requested for the Isala Sawab of Marhumin listed on the screen and for all Marhumin. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah. Ayama Yujib is requested for the names listed on the screen and for all those in need here and elsewhere. Let us recite together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم عما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Join us on Thursday, February 9th for an interactive session with guest speaker Gerald Grennan, partner and founding member of Grennan Fender LLP. In addition to going over some of the tax laws that have changed in 2023, the session will provide information on how tax planning can help you legally reduce income taxes. This session will be beneficial for all types of individuals, including professionals, business owners, retirees, and part-time employees. At this time, I would like to invite Dr. Kirmani to give tonight's lecture with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
احلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين صدق الله العلي العظيم زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters, youngsters in Islam and Iman here in Florida, across the globe, wherever you're hearing my voice, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question, what is self-control? We're told when we come to the life of our beloved Imam, our seventh holy Imam who we are here to commemorate, there's a moment in time where a companion by the name of Safwan is there, and he says, I had come to meet the sixth Imam, the father of the seventh Imam. I had come to meet Imam Sadiq. And when I had come there, I had seen a young boy who was standing in the courtyard, and he was seeming to be playing with an animal, a little sheep or a goat from the time. And I thought he was just playing with the animal. But as I got closer, I noticed that this young man, or this young boy, is actually speaking to the animal. And at that point in time, when I noticed, I got closer, I realized that this was none other than the son of the Imam. And I got closer and I realized that the Imam's son was causing the animal to bend its ears and actually help it in a particular way. And when I saw this, I noticed, I began a dialogue. I said, are you playing with this animal? Are you having, just spending some leisure time, or what is the matter here? He said, no, I'm teaching this animal how to pray. He said, Ya Rasulullah, even the animals, they have prayer? I said, indeed. Allah says in the Quran, every single thing is taught, is doing the dhikr of Allah. And we are not only the imams of the people, we are the guides for all of Allah's creation. And therefore, that's why it is one of the titles of his son, that is the seventh Imam's son, the eighth Imam, Imam al-Rida, is Zamane-Ahu, or Imam-e-Zamin. This idea of the one who gives shelter even to the deer, if you remember that waqiyah. It doesn't come out of anywhere. These concepts of animal rights that were taught, that were exhibited by the eighth Imam, Imam al-Rida, were taught, his father was doing it from a young age as well. all of the Ahlul Bayt, in fact, had this mercy and compassion for other of the creation. So when we look at this Imam, one of the fundamental things that we find in his life is this focus on self-control. And that is our focus for today in this commemoration. I want to look at how does this Imam teach us valuable lessons about control of our nafs and ourselves. What does it have to do, second level, with controlling desires? What does it have to do with controlling anger? What does it have to do with controlling emotions? And what does this have to do with becoming insani kamil? Is this something separate, or is there any relation to becoming insani kamil in terms of these emotions? Number three, what are some of those moments in the life of this Imam that teach us how much self-control he had and inspire us to have control over ourselves? When it came to merrymaking of the time and the good leisures of the time, how did the Imam control and invite others to control? When it came to imprisonment and unjustly being imprisoned, how did the Imam control himself and invite others to have control and use that as an opportunity for spiritual upliftment rather than demoralization? And finally, how did this Imam even teach us that one can have self-control in a political sphere where power may be in front of you, but still you should have control over yourself? And ultimately, how is that understanding at the fourth level and the final one help us make the quality of our lives better in this dunya and inshallah for the hereafter? This is our agenda for the brief moments that we have together. Wherever you are, here in Florida, across the globe, from the bottom of your heart, send a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. According to the narrations, Imam al-Sadiq is returning back from Mecca towards Medina. In the middle, there's a locality, a city, a small town called Abwa. Abwa, you'll remember, is where the mother of Rasulullah is buried. Bibi Amina is buried in Abwa, between Mecca and Medina. Same way, at that point in time when they stopped there, Imam al-Sadiq and his wife, who was expecting, there she gives birth to the seventh holy Imam, Imam al-Kadhim. And he was born in this locality. Then he grows up in Medina under the auspices of his respected father, who was a great scholar of the time, and his grandfather, of course, was a great scholar of the time. But especially his father has caused the University of Medina to flourish. And in this environment, the Imam is rising and he is learning. We're told the time of Imam al-Kadhim, there are three movements going on in the Muslim world, all of them happening during the time of Imam al-Kadhim. What are they? Number one, he has the era of the people who are the jurists of the time. Jurists who? The era of fiqh of the Muslim world was established and concreted and actually cemented during this time. That is, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Hanbali, the four scholars of Ahl Sunnah, Madahib, they're all during the time of Imam al-Kadhim. And you will find that the Imam has addressed them and answered many of their questions during this time, number one. The second categories are the Failsufs, the philosophers of the time. Philosophy, in particular Greco-Roman or Greek-Roman philosophy, had become very popular in the Muslim world at this time. In fact, our world would not have Greek philosophy if it were not for the hard work of Muslim philosophers and writers and translators who preserved them, because much of the works were lost in the West. It was the Arab and Muslim world that preserved them. So philosophy, but that was also leading some people in the right direction, and some people were going down the wrong direction. And so the Imam had to answer them. And the third category of people that the Imam had to answer were those people who were the Sufis. Now the Sufis, many of them had good niyyah, good intention, but some of the things that they did here and there, they were also problematic. And so the Imam said, you have to be careful in certain aspects of what's happening. So this was one. And by the way, the Imam did all of this. He countered all of these movements and answered them while there was a situation where he was in prison for, some say, up to 14 years or more in prison. You see, what the Imam teaches us, which I hope is the take-home message for myself and everyone here, is self-control. Allow me to explain. That's the next level, the second level. How is it that self-control is something vital in order to get to insani kamil? Now, for the youngsters and those who may be hearing, because I've been informed that many listen after and in other places, I'll give you a very hard and fast example, a very quick and dry example that will help you understand. Charlie Munger. Now, Charlie Munger is the business partner of Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people in America, and he's known for his wisdom. Bill Gates says, I've learned so much from Charlie Munger. Warren Buffett says, I've learned so much from Charlie Munger. They both say the smartest person they've ever met is this guy, Charlie Munger. And he says, he has many lines that he's written for advice, but one of them he says, there are 3 ways to go broke. Now he's giving this to a young man growing up in America. This is advice to a young man growing up in America. And please don't try to listen to it with an open mind. So he says, there are 3 ways to go broke. And he's a financial expert, right? He's an investor. He says the 3 ways to go broke are liquor, ladies, and leverage. He says if you get alcohol and you become an alcoholic, you're going broke. If you go on, by the way, ladies not meaning your wife, meaning, other problem, other issues. He says that ladies, if you start spending and showing off, that's going to be a problem. You're going to go broke. And third is leverage. Leverage is when greed gets into the picture. And you start saying that, hey, I can borrow, and then that causes you to go broke. But the idea is nobody wants to get rich slow. Everyone wants to get rich fast. He says that's how we make our money, he argues. The same was the principle of what Nietzsche said. Nietzsche lived 200 years ago, and he wrote many books, but Nietzsche is the one who said, what does not kill me makes me stronger, based on many other philosophers before him. And he also said that God is dead, based on how people's actions are telling me God is dead. He said that one must control themselves because the biggest hindrance to becoming Superman, Übermensch, which he said in German, is when one is not able to control their nafs, their selves. Because you had all this potential, and you could become the greatest person on the planet, but something distracted you from going on the right path, and you went down the wrong path, and you lost all that potential that you had. Some people started drinking, some people started doing this. Now come back to the verse, 3rd level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran al-Majid wa Furqan al-Hamid, He says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. These people, they give in good times and bad. They give that is in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they have and when they don't have. Meaning what? Relatively, someone may say times are good, bank balance is good, things are good, I'll give in that time. But then there's another category of people who even when times may be tough for them, now granted, you should also always be financially responsible and save and invest responsibly, but even when times are a little tougher, they'll still take out some portion to give. I remind you, there are 4 categories of this in Islam. By the way, when I talk about Islam and economics, when I talk about Islam and finance, when I talk about Islam and environmentalism, Islam and any other subject, one thing that we need to remind ourselves is there is no difference between Islam in your business life and your Islamic life. In Islam, there's no difference between your family life and your religious life. It's all connected. So you cannot say, oh, I'm a very shrewd businessman, but you're bending the laws, and then you're coming to religion and saying, I'm going to play nice here. It doesn't work like that. The essence of Islam is you have to understand that you cannot compartmentalize religion. You know what that means? Today, in our society, we've compartmentalized religion. We say, Jum'ah, I'll be Muslim. Saturday, I'll be Jewish on the Sabbath. On Sunday, I will be, for example, Christian. And the rest of the days, I'll just do whatever I do. That's not the ethos of Islam. Islam's concept was you work hard in entrepreneurship and business and enterprise, do it the right way because your business is a part of the greater fabric of society. And when you do things the right way and you help contribute to society, society grows together. That's why capitalism was there. Why am I saying this? There are 4 categories in Islam of giving. 2 are the positive ones, 2 are the negatives. Allah says, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ. They give in good times and bad. There are 2 categories. In Islam, there is someone who is sakhi, sakhawat. Sakhawat is when you give when you have. It's good. When you have an extra, you give. Now, sakhawat doesn't only have to be with money. It can be with your knowledge, it can be with your wisdom, it could be with your anything. In fact, in Islam, one of the requirements for someone of ilm is that they must teach and they must distribute their knowledge. Otherwise, Allah may take it back. So one of the requirements is to give. The same way, when you have wealth, it is a requirement, access, to give. Otherwise, Allah may conceal. One is sakhawat. Sakhi is the one who gives when they have. There's another level, and this is what the ayah is referring to. That is kareem. Kareem is the one who, when they don't have, they still give. Or even in a situation where you would not expect someone to give, they would give. What? Amir al-Mu'mineen is in battle, Imam Ali is in battle. And the enemy on the other side, his sword falls to the ground. Imam Ali can overtake him in 1 second. But the enemy knew it was Ali. And he says, Ya Ali, habli sayfak. Ya Ali, give me your sword. Amir al-Mu'mineen gives him the sword. This is karam in a state of battle. Now, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he may be much exalted in terms of the battlefield. You and I may not be required to do that. We may have our head, but Amir al-Mu'mineen has enough confidence and ability that he's able to do this. But there's two negative aspects of generosity or greed that one doesn't give. One is bakhil and the other is la'im. Bakhil, so now the height is karam, kareem, then under that is sakhi, then under that is bakhil. Bakhil is the person who they will, for example, be in a situation where they don't give themselves, but they'll take care of the ones around them. They'll take care of their family and their immediate ones, but they won't give anyone else. That's not encouraged, but it's still not the worst. The worst in Islamic, in this spiritual disease, it's called la'im. And this person who is la'im has spiritual cancer or spiritual rabies. That is the person who, they say, I'm not going to give anybody and I'm going to go hungry myself. I'm not going to let anyone give anything. That's a spiritual disease in Islam, la'im, where the person, they can't give and they cannot tolerate other people giving as well. In Islam, there was a conscience behind the concept of giving and understanding. So now, this is what the ayah is saying. الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظ. Imam al-Kadhim's, his title is what? Kadhim. Kadhim meaning what? The one who controls. The title is not complete until we understand the verse. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظ. And they control their anger. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And they forgive the people. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And Allah loves those who do good. What does psychology say at the fourth level? What does psychology say about anger? Is anger an emotion? Is it an internal emotion or external emotion? Do you know what psychologists say? Psychologists say anger is a surface level emotion. It's a secondary emotion. What does that mean? Whenever you see someone angry, in psychology, they say that that's not the primary emotion. That's the secondary emotion. It's the surface level emotion. Behind anger is something else. Behind anger is either fear or worry or some other emotion. That is the fundamental emotion behind anger. It's easier to get angry because we don't know how to deal with our emotion of being vulnerable, of being afraid, of being scared, of being worried. So we can't tell the other person that. So we have that insecurity, so we burst out in anger. It's a secondary emotion. What does the Imam teach us about this? All of the aspects of the life of Imam al-Kadhim teach us about how to control the anger, how to control the desires, how to control the elements of that may be power in front of our eyes, and then we are able to control ourselves through the example of the Imam. What do I mean? This Imam teaches us some valuable lessons. Remember, in Islam and Islamic concepts, there are faculties that are elements of the heart and the soul of the believer. What are they? You have, for example, the quwwat al-ghadabiyya, quwwat al-shahwiyya, quwwat al-wahmiyya, quwwat al-aqaliyya. These are the four dimensions of what make up our soul. And these are those things that have been said from ancient times. The ancient Greeks used to call it the horse and the horse rider, or the elephant and the elephant rider. Islam had a more established version where Islam said there are four faculties. There are quwwat al-aqaliyya, wahmiyya, shahwiyya, and ghadabiyya. What is it? The quwwat of ghadabiyya is anger. There's anger within the soul. Not all anger is bad. There's times where one should get angry. When? Angry when, for example, injustice and zulm is being done on someone. Someone who's innocent, zulm is being done, such as what we're seeing on the news, for example, and things of injustice in our society. That's one example. Injustice, one should get angry. So, quwwat ghadabiyya. Then there's quwwat wahmiyya, that is imagination. By the way, one of the biggest causes, one of the things that behavioral therapists say, that when you're going through depression or you're going through a negative spell, this is something where the faculty of imagination is affected. What? Why? Because your imagination is not able to think of something positive happening. All you need to do is expand your imagination a little bit to say that, hold on, maybe something beautiful will happen on the other side. Maybe life, the next years are going to be amazing if I work hard and do things the right way. And you say, hold on a second, I've made it to this point, alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed me to this point, and I have all the tools around me to be able to succeed. You just need a little bit more positive imagination. That's very important that Allah is given us. By the way, the imagination has allowed us to make all the things that we've made as human societies. The next one is shahwiya, that is desire. And the final one is aqaliyya, aql, reason. Now, according to ulama, above all three of these other ones should be aql. Aql should be above the other three. If aql is not above the other three, then the problem ends up becoming that we become slaves to our desires, which has become the norm in common positive society. So how does the Imam teach us about this? Example number one. Imam is walking in the city of Baghdad. Now, as you know, the narrations say, you will find these hadiths that say you should not spend, from the Ahlul Bayt, you should not spend the night in Baghdad. This is what the letter of the hadith is. But what is the spirit of the hadith? The ulama, when they were explaining, they said that Baghdad, at that time when the Imam gave this tradition, it was the major metropolitan city of the time. Baghdad was the Tokyo, the New York City, the Paris, the London of the time. And if you know anything of this time, of that time and this time, cities, there are many benefits of major cities. Cross-pollination of ideas, but there are also downsides. One of the negatives, which many of you may be aware of, is vices, negatives, drugs, alcohol, bad things spread and proliferate faster in cities. They proliferate much faster in cities. And so what's important to know about that is the Imams, according to the scholars, said they were saying don't spend the night in Baghdad because at night in Baghdad every gунah happened, every ma'asiyah happened, every wrong thing happened. So Imam is walking in Baghdad in the middle of the night, he's going home. He's going to his home. He passes by a house where a party is going on. For that time, a big gathering is happening and merrymaking and all of this is going on. So the Imam's passing by. When he's passing by, the lady who is the housekeeper and she's the one who's taking out the rubbish, she's passing by and going to dispose of the rubbish at the same time the Imam's passing by. The Imam says, tell me something. Is the owner of this home, where this music is coming from and this merrymaking is happening, is the owner a slave or a free man? She says, this is one of the wealthiest men in all of Baghdad. Are you serious? Is he the wealthy, or is he a free man, or is he a slave? He's the freest of men. Imam al-Kadhim just has one statement. He says, it seems like it. And he goes on his way. At that point in time, when he said this, Imam went his way. When Imam said this, the lady went back towards the house. When she went back towards the house, she saw the owner of the house, Bishr. His name was Bishr. He says that, what happened? What took you so long? He said, oh, I was just throwing out the rubbish, but then there was this man who was passing by. He asked me a question. He said, what's the question? He said, is the owner of this house a free man or a slave? So what did you say? I said, of course, he's a free man. He's the freest of men. He's one of the wealthiest men in Baghdad. He said, what did he say to that? I said, I thought so. It seems like it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be acting in this way. As soon as he heard this, the narrations say, this man, Bishr, he ran. He did not have shoes on, he ran. They called him Bishr al-Afi, meaning the Bishr, the one without shoes, the shoeless one, barefoot. He ran after him and he caught the Imam. He said, what did you say at that moment? Because he understood that what Imam had said. The Imam had said, he's not a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one who is not a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will become a slave to their own nafs and their own soul. And they think they're free, but actually they are trapped. When he said this open, by the way, Bishr became a big person in the Sufi faith. They said that this is a person who got some ma'rifah from Imam al-Kadhim. By the way, when we discuss Imam al-Kadhim, it should be a point that all Muslims gather on. Allow me to explain. Imam al-Shafi'i has written so much poetry in honor of Ahlul Bayt, in particular Imam Ali. For example, he writes the very famous qasida. Imam Shafi'i is not Shia, by the way. He's لو أن المرتضى يبدي محل لكان الخلق طرا سجد الله كفى في فضل مولانا عليا. And he writes a long qasida. And he's the one who talked about Imam Ali, and they said, Imam Shafi'i, till when will you recite the fadail of Ali? He said, till when, and until which time will you blame me for loving this man? Referring to Imam Ali. Was Hal Ata revealed for anyone except him? And was Fatima al-Zahra married to anyone except him? That Imam Shafi'i understood. By the way, Imam Shafi'i is the same one who said that I found that the door of Musa al-Kadhim was a mujarrab place for your dua to be accepted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For shifa'ah, for tawassul. Imam Shafi'i is saying this. What happened to the Muslim world to forget this? Number one. Number two, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal also had respect for Imam al-Kadhim. Do you know to what extent? When they killed Imam al-Kadhim, by the way, I know we're commemorating his birth, but just a side note of how honest and how much integrity the ulama of the past had. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they paid all of the scholars to come and they said, look at the body of Musa al-Kadhim and stay in a sworn statement that he died of natural causes. Young Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they gave him a big lot of money. They said, this is all yours, just sign the paper. He said, he looked at the body and he said, until my death, I will never sign this paper. Because I'm seeing from head to toe there are marks on this body. And he was not dying of a natural cause. You're lying. They had integrity. Imam Nasai was killed. Why? He wrote a book called Khisais Ali ibn Abi Talib in honor of Imam Ali. They said, write a book like this about Muawiyah. The people of Sham said. He said, I can't write this about any other companion. You want a book about this like Muawiyah? A book like this from Muawiyah? Impossible. They beat him to death. They beat him to death. So this is the concept. Number one, he tells us to control over our desires. Why? So we can go on the path of Allah. Before one goes on the path of Allah, you first have to remove all the obstacles. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. What is Allah saying in Surah Fatiha? The right path. Keep away from the wrong. Keep us away from the wrong path. You have to stay away from the wrong path to get to the right trajectory, number one. Second example, Imam used to be in prison. And in prison, they used to try to hurt the Imam in the worst way. And they used to try to use, for example, look, aqaliya is above, should be above, wahmiya, shahwiya, ghadabiya. So they paid a lady of the time who had a particular profession or character, and they said, take this money and try to draw the attention away of Imam al-Kadhim, who always used to be in worship. By the way, there was a scholar who lived there in Iran before the revolution, and he told his friend was Sayyid Hussein Nasr. Sayyid Hussein Nasr says himself that my friend was imprisoned unjustly, unlawfully he was put in prison. When he was put in prison, he said, I visited him. When I visited him, he was saying, get me out of here. This prison is driving me mad. I can't stay in here. So I said, don't worry, we're working on something to get you out. But he said, in the meantime, keep this. He gave him the Masnavi of Rumi. Now, Masnavi has many good things, many problems, sure. But remember, Rumi is the same one who said, Az Ali amuz ikhlas amal. Learn from Ali the sincerity of action. Regardless, I don't want to open that box. He said, 1 week later, I came to visit my friend, and I said, I'm still trying to get you out. He said, get me out. I don't want to leave. I said, what? He said, this book and this place is the best place for me to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm good here. What happened? What changed in 1 week? He said he changed from a situation where he was feeling isolation to khalwa. Khalwa, that means this seclusion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was turning the isolation to seclusion, the same way Rasulullah was in Ghar Hira, where same way Ashab al-Kahf were in the cave, where you were able to say, Allah, it is me and you. That's why Imam al-Kadhim, in that difficult time, he would raise his hands and say, Ya Allah, thank you for allowing me to worship and giving me a place to worship you in seclusion and together. There's no obstacle in my way. But they still sent a lady there to try to draw the Imam's attention away. What was the thing Charlie Munger said? Now, this lady, Imam said, stay in your place. And he continued in his prayer to the point that she became so enamored by this person who had so much self-control that she began to pray behind the Imam. And they came to that lady and they said, did you do what we told you to do? He said, I have seen the truth. And I only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the Imam that I follow. And you can do whatever you want to me, but I will not leave this path. This was the ability that the Imam had to bring people from the wrong path to the right path. And finally, one narration that reminds us how important it is to even have all the power in front of our eyes, but still have control. Who? Ali bin Yaqtin. There was a man during the time, during the time of Imam, Ali bin Yaqtin was a Shia with a good belief system, and he was someone who the ruler said, Ali, we want you to be in office, in political office. He came to the Imam, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I've been offered this position, should I take it or not? He says, look, as long as you are able to benefit the Shias and help them, take this position. So he takes the position. He's doing good work. Internally, he's doing good work for the Shias and helping them out. They're being oppressed. He's helping them get out of jail. He's helping them in many other ways. But one day, one Shia comes and wants to meet Ali bin Yaqtin. Ali bin Yaqtin says to his assistant, tell him I don't have time today. When this same Ali bin Yaqtin went to meet Imam al-Kadhim later on to have an audience with him, Imam refused him. Now, anybody else would get arrogant, would get angry. Remember, anger, it's a secondary emotion which is covering up the primary emotion. The primary emotion is you feel hurt, you feel embarrassed, you feel, sad, whatever it may be. But he knew that if the Imam is doing something, there's a lesson here. So he asked, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, what is the matter? The Imam sent the message. A Shia who did not have many means, a humble means, came to meet you, and you said you didn't have time. Remember what was the condition why we allowed you to be in this position? If you can do good for the believers, then stay in that position. Otherwise, do not let the power get to your head. That desire is not only for other things, desire is also for power. Don't let that get to your head, he told him. Ali bin Yaqtin went to that other person who he had not sought an audience with. He said, I will not leave until you put the mark of your foot on my face, on my cheek, so I can show Imam al-Kadhim. He said, how can I do? You're Ali bin Yaqtin. He says, listen to what I'm doing. This level of humility and this level of self-control is what is needed in order to get towards Insani Kamil. And we learned this from the life of Imam al-Kadhim. Take home message and final thing. How can one, based on Imam al-Kadhim's life, how can one build in their life closure? How can they build control, anger? One thing that the therapists, the experts say, if you want to build control in your life, in Islam, as you know, when you get angry, you are told, do wudu. You are told, if you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lay down. And if you're angry with a loved one, after everything calms down, then touch them, a hug or something like this. But there's another example in modern science, for example, and that is this. Become curious. When you're noticing yourself getting upset and angry, ask questions to yourself. Why am I getting angry? What is it really? Am I angry about what I'm saying I'm angry about? Or is there something else that's bothering me? I'm stressed out about something. I'm worried about something. That will help you. Becoming curious will help you understand what is really behind the scenes so that you and I can control this by the tawassul of Imam al-Kadhim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this ibadah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to learn from the life of Imam al-Kadhim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be wayfarers on the path of righteousness and understand guidance when it's sent towards us. The same way Bishr al-Afi understood it, or the same way the lady who was in the dungeon in the prison with the Imam understood it. The same way that Ali bin Yaqtin understood that one should understand the guidance that comes their way. Ya Allah, allow us to control ourselves so we can go on the path to becoming Insani Kamil. Ya Allah, allow us to have wonderful relationships with our families, our friends, with our loved ones, and allow us to be amongst the companions of the Imam of our time and hasten his reappearance so that we may see that day. Final request to please recite the Surah Al-Fatiha for your marhameen, for our marhameen, and for all those who do not have someone to recite Al-Fatiha for them in this night. Surah Al-Mubarak Al-Fatiha ma'as salawat. Allahumma salli ala.
أفضل الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول محمد وآل محمد या रब तुझे है मूसिए का ज़िम का वास्ता मकबूल हमारी ये दुआ हो ए खुदाया या रब तुझे है मूसिए का ज़िम का वास्ता मकबूल हमारी ये दुआ हो ए खुदाया गो मासियत में डूबे हुए हम हैं गुनहगार पर तेरी है रहमत की नज़र के है तलबगार तू अफ़वा कर दे हमको के हम सब है दिल अफ़गार मालिक तेरे हुसैन के हम सब है आज़ादार या रब तुझे है मूसिए का ज़िम का वास्ता مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. باب الحوائج ہے لقب رہبر کا ہمارے، بے ان کے وسیلہ نہیں ہم کو کوئی چارہ. طوفان میں ہے ناؤ ابھی دور کنارہ، حیران ہے مجبور ہے بے آس و سہارا. یا رب تجھے ہے موسیٰ کا ذم کا واسطہ، مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. یا رب تجھے ہے احمد مرسل کا واسطہ، مولا علی کا فاطمہ خیبر کا واسطہ، مولا حسن کا فاطمہ کے در کا واسطہ، مولا حسین کا وقت سر کا واسطہ. یا رب تجھے ہے موسیٰ کا ذم کا واسطہ، مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. عباس کے کٹے ہوئے شانوں کا واسطہ، اصغر کا واسطہ تجھے بانو کا واسطہ، آفت زدہ مظلوموں کا پیاسوں کا واسطہ، بے غسل بے کفن تھے وہ لاشوں کا واسطہ. یا رب تجھے ہے موسیٰ کا ذم کا واسطہ، مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. یا رب تجھے ہے فاطمہ اطہر کا واسطہ، زینب کے بندے ہاتھ کھلے سر کا واسطہ، جو ہے مریض جلد وہ پا جائے صد شفا، حاجات جو لے کے آئے ہیں برائے موت دعا. یا رب تجھے ہے موسیٰ کا ذم کا واسطہ، مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. موت آئی نہ پہلے ہمیں ناکام نصیب ہو، پہلے تو ہمیں حج و زیارت نصیب ہو. یا رب ہمیں کرب و بلا جان نا نصیب ہو، آنکھوں سے زری پاک لگانا نصیب ہو. یا رب تجھے ہے موسیٰ کا ذم کا واسطہ، مقبول ہماری یہ دعا ہو اے خدایا. افضل الصلاۃ محمد و آل محمد صلوات. الہی ببیمار داشت بلا، جو بیمار ہو جلد پاوے شفا. الہی برائے امام زمان ہمیں ہول میں شر سے دے تو امان قیامت سے معشور ہو بالی اٹھے قبر سے کہہ کہ ہم یا علی اے پانچ ونو مل چہادتان احمد والی زہرا و حسن شبیر سے لے امام زمان شبیر سے لے امام زمان ایک ایک پہ صدا صلوات پڑھو صلوات صلوات و سلام یا امام زمان فرماؤ ظہور یا امام زمان صلوات.
زیارت. السلام علیکہ یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا حبیب اللہ، السلام علیکہ یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیکہ یا فاطمۃ الزہراء، السلام علیکہ یا حسن المجتبی، السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیکہ یا حسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین، السلام علیکہ یا تسعۃ المعصومین علی ابن الحسین ومحمد ابن علی وجعفر ابن محمد وموسى ابن جعفر وعلي ابن موسى ومحمد ابن علي وعلي ابن محمد والحسن ابن علي. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله لك ما وعدك من الناس وظهور الأمر ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. صلوات.